So let's spend about a minute to talk about the oil stocks on Tuesday. 40 oil, as you heard earlier, went in the red. Mobil managed to gain. Oando lost 4.84. If you look at the industry in summary, that sector 2.7% in the red. And of course, quite a lot to chew with the oil stocks. Then we'll leave all of that till towards the end of the program when we get Rotimi Fakayo to talk to us about the entire market and the issues from the fiscal space. But Saudi Arabia was in the news last Friday and is the one everybody seems to be blaming for the latest oil markets, for those decisions with from the OPEC regarding keeping the roof open for oil production moving forward. Let's bring in one of the gentlemen who's deep in the oil industry. He will talk about the crude awakening and the global energy market in 2016. Dr. Oladi Bada, who is the CEO at Shoreline Natural Resources. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much,
We
sir.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
What's the outcome? We all know what the outcome was, but what are the takeaways from last week OPEC meeting, Friday, December 4th, to be precise?
Well, the outcome, as we know, is that, which is the most important thing, is that at the end of it, prices did not go up. It did not stay the same. It actually went down. It went down, obviously, based on sentiments, where people felt that there was not enough commitment towards reduction in the volumes being produced by all the producers. Just as I said earlier on, the largest producer being Saudi Arabia was still keeping up to its production figures. And of course, the hottest topic of today, people are concerned about Iran's new production that will come up. And all that together has brought the market slightly even lower. We're at a 7-year low now as we speak. That's
quite really bad. That meeting, members, OPEC members were wrangling over output, supply, production, whether to cut output and things like that. So the takeaway was that price isn't going anywhere north. The World Bank warns in our reports to Nigeria yesterday that, look, we should look at things going south rather than north. So the key question is, give us a sense, therefore, from where we are, what the global energy market will look like in 2016.
The global energy market, I mean, when people like myself or anyone else speaks, I always say that we're as ignorant as we are as intelligent in understanding the market, because the market itself has proved to be an animal on its own. And the easiest way I look at it is that 50% of the analysts, global analysts, believe prices will go down. 50% of the analysts believe price will stay the same. And another 50% believe price will go up. So,
quite a mathematics.
So
it's
exactly,
like 150%. So how do you get 150 out of 100?
So that's exactly what I'm saying. So when you have a situation in which even it doesn't even add up the amount of analysts who are coming up to an agreement. The same thing also, it just tells us also quite clearly that we cannot be 100% sure. But one thing is clear, the days of $100 oil, at least in the near future, is over. Sadly to say, possibly even the days of $80 oil. But what we do believe is that prices might pick up a little bit in the second quarter from what we see from some responsible analysts, but we don't really see things going beyond 55, 60.
We're not sure about prices, but something is really sure. Production will continue en masse.
Yes.
From OPEC and non-OPEC members. That we're sure of.
That we're sure of. But, you know, for me, I think Nigeria should focus less on what the other OPEC countries are doing, focus on actually meeting its own target. As we are today, I do not believe we're meeting our own OPEC target. We're way, way, way short of that. And we have a lot of production deferments coming through from Nigeria. We're not having any replacements of assets. There's no growth. Even the big oil fields that you have offshore with the IOCs, the way oil works is that even if a field is producing 150,000 barrels today, it depletes over a period of time, and you have to continue to replace those production. That is not taking place now in Nigeria. Also, we also believe a lot more effort should be done by the government in encouraging indigenous production. I mean, unfortunately, I have to speak about it. I'm an independent producer. I'm an indigenous, and we believe also strongly the future of Nigeria's growth is independent. There was some news report I saw a few days ago that said independents or indigenous are not produce as much as 6%. But actually, I think it's a lot higher than that. I think indigenous and independents are producing as much as 10% of production, and we hold as much as 30% of the reserves. With that, I think Nigeria needs to encourage that, and we'll be able to see some reasonable production from there.
Yes, the cabinet just decided that for 2016, our output will be up by 20% to 2.2 million barrels per day. How much of that will be your share? When I mean your share, I mean independent oil producers.
I'll say today we possibly are able to do or producing up to 10% of that. But with encouragement, you must realize that most of independents today are producing onshore. I would say 90% of independents are producing onshore. And the biggest challenge we have is not even oil price. It's sad to say, but the biggest challenge of independent companies who are producing onshore is not oil price, even though oil price itself is a challenge. But the double whammy we have is that we have a lot of security challenges. And those security challenges really have to do with bunkering. That's affecting pipelines. And with the pipeline losses, I do believe most of us lose far more from pipeline losses and bunkering
than actual price
decline. So what we have is a double whammy. I believe strongly if the government can do a lot in terms of security for the pipelines, and we will be able to see a lot more increase in production.
New chief executive did promise that there will be drones, there will be the members of the army and the navy. They're bringing all the entire security apparatchik into protecting your vital oil asset. Is that happening already? It hasn't happened. When do you think it will happen?
Well, I must admit, because as much as many times we ourselves tend to criticize the government as the regulators, but we must also admit that since June, at least on our side in the Western Delta onshore, we also run the largest pipeline into the Western Delta, which is the Trans-Forcados pipeline that takes crude from most of the Western Delta into Forcados terminal, one of Nigeria's largest terminal. We've seen almost a 40–50% reduction in bunkering and in attacks and in security issues on that line since, say, June. Now, we believe 6 months is too early for us to just lay back and say, okay, things are happening. So we do encourage the government to really do a lot more to reduce it from the 60% to, we believe zero might not be possible at this moment in time, but at least a low volume. And we'll benefit from it. Increased production, it helps the local community, all sorts of things come out from there. So it is happening. There's been some level of increased security, but on the pipeline, at least from the Western Delta onshore, but we believe a whole lot more could still be done.
What about costs? There was this graph all the time, looks like the cost of production, and Nigeria is said to be one of the markets, one of the industries where cost of oil production is so high that it negates whatever haircuts or kind of headroom you should have. Even though oil prices keep going down, your price keep pushing up here, so it looks like you folks are somewhere in the middle here.
Talking about cost of oil in Nigeria or cost of production in Nigeria is a shameful situation. In that, honestly, as I said to you, I'd like to look onwards in trying to see how we can increase productivity here in Nigeria. First of all, even if we leave oil price, let's work on security, let's work on cost of production, just as you said. Even with that, with the same level of production, with the same level of oil, we can probably even earn a lot more revenue for each and every single Nigerian. In the cost of production today, it is high, it is unreasonably high. There are many factors related to that. One, of course, as I said earlier on, is security. Another one is extensive bureaucracy. We have approached the government both as indigenous oil producers and also as part of what we call the OPTS, which is the organized private sector for the oil companies, which we are members of. And we've been able to show the government that today the contracting cycle in Nigeria, well, in most countries who produce oil for contracts is about 9 months. In Nigeria, we're facing contracting cycles in the region of 24 months. Now, those 24 months, I mean, that is a total wastage in resources. So, but the fantastic thing is that we brought this to the minister now, even when he was GMD, and he's promised as a person himself who was actively involved in the oil production as a private company, and he's fully aware that we need to do something about that. Everyone
on the streets would think that the ease of doing business in the oil sector will be one of the easiest. Now you're saying it's about 24 months.
Yes, it is 24 months, and it needs to go down, and the government is fully aware of this, and we're open and we also recognize that it's a joint effort. We are willing to give advice to government on what we think, what changes could be made in terms of maybe they have more than multiple agencies getting involved in single type inspections and all sorts of different things that could be done. And of course, the other big issue, of course, we also know is funding. The government is having a funding challenge for those JVs, especially those that involve the IOCs. So it is a major issue that is not encouraging further production.
So the government says, moving forward, the federal government won't bear the burden of capital projects to push it to you.
Oof. That's a contested issue that should never be discussed on camera. That is an issue that is presently still
under discussion,
under debate. These production sharing contracts and these joint venture contracts have specific legal frameworks that tells you what each party's responsibility is. And I think it's best left for us to come to a final conclusion. But the important thing is that the government is discussing with all parties, including the indigenous JV owners and the IOCs, who are also JV partners and also the PSCs.
So that pushes us to the final stop, which is the PIB. It's going to be broken down. The word on the street is that, well, this is going to come in two parts. What's your view about this?
I like the word. I like the way you put it, the word on the streets, because beyond the word on the streets, we have nothing specific yet. We've heard about the word on the street is going to be broken down into two. We've heard that the word on the streets is going to be passed as one, all sorts of things. But we do recognize that the PIB, as it is now, is already without the contents or the different aspects of the PIB is operational right now in the different laws. That's the extant laws that make the PIB. But if they want to make it be passed and they separate it into at least two, I think is laudable. It is bringing a lot of, well, let me say, the uncertainty is really what's causing a delay, especially for those who want to invest big in the upstream oil space. So the sooner we can at least pass some aspects of it, the better it is. Dividing NNPC into two, according to, as you said, the word on the street.
You holding me this
I hold you because we have not seen it yet, but dividing NNPC into two, according to the word on the street, it can be fantastic. Maybe NNPC itself is too large and it needs to be managed in a much more nimble manner, and having two separate organizations,
a commercial entity and an asset management.
Maybe it will help them to be a bit more nimble. But one thing we can tell you for free is that the government, the IOC, the national oil company needs to be a lot more nimble than it is right now.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. We appreciate that.
Thank you so
an
much.
Executive oil time. This is not a time to waste. I'm sure you guys having sleepless nights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Ladi Bada, who the CEO at Shoreline Natural Resources. When we come back, we go downstream. The dilemma President Buhari faces. The World Bank says our fuel subsidy bill is rising. It's not sustainable. On the other hand, the Labour Congress says, don't go near subsidy remover. How should President Buhari decide? When should he decide? After the break.